And what's going on? Happy, I don't know what day this is. I think it's Wednesday. I'm never sure what day it is. Welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles Podcast presents the Cancer Chronicles. This is episode 2. I'm your boy, I'm Terry. So I'm doing this to chronicle my journey with cancer. I, I'm still getting used to that, getting used to that term, being a cancer patient and all that. It still hasn't really sunk in. But tonight's episode, I think, is going to be pretty good because tonight I want to talk about mental health and how it affects men. Men's mental health. I know it's a month in the year. I'm not sure which month it is that focuses directly and totally on men's mental health. My mental health is in no shape, form where I need it to be. I have some things that I deal with on a daily basis that I dealt with before I got my diagnosis, and how this diagnosis has intensified since my diagnosis. Now, a few things before we get into that is that one, you know, doing a Google search. I mean, it's simple. It's simple Google searching and trying to get information for the show, for this episode. And I was Googling earlier and I put in men's health, cancer, right? And one of the things that I read because it gives you, now with Google, it gives you an AI overview of, the subject that you typed in. And so I put it in and the first thing it said to me was that men with cancer can experience a range of mental health issues, depression, anxiety, fatigue, which I have all three of those things. Depression, as defined with Google, is a common mental health condition that can cause feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and loss of activities. Anxiety is defined on Google as it can be elevated in men's cancer. Fear, as defined in Google, can result in discovery of cancer, and the future uncertainty, which is one of the things, is I think the future uncertainty is the biggest one. But before we get into that, though, my mental health goes all the way back to when I was 17, starting from there. And if anybody who has watched this episode or watched me, or watched the podcast, I've talked about this several times, to where, at 17 years old, I found out that the man who raised me wasn't my biological father. Now, I will tell you, finding that out at such a late stage in my life was definitely, it was a definite hard pill to swallow. And so when I got into the dating world, that particular thing was really a factor in how I dealt with people, how I dealt with women. And a lot of the issues that I had or have stem from that particular moment in my life. Now, being that now I'm 49 years old now, and those things still affect me as far as my mental health. Now, my father, my stepfather, Walter, that's my brother's biological father. Now, he's not my bio dad, but he's the man that raised me. He's the one who I see as my father. When I talk about my dad, that's who I refer to, because he was the one that raised me and gave me all the morals, the best morals that he could until I was 17, and then I decided to rebel. But through all this time, I used to be like, okay, I'm too old now. My second wife, Katrina, will tell you. My last wife, Melissa, will tell you. I said the same thing. Is that I really don't care. He didn't want me. Because for years I always thought that one particular gentleman was my father, but it come to find out through ancestry DNA that he was not. And so the man that is my father, and he knows this, this young man. So I'm hoping whoever watches this that knows me, knows him, let him know that I'm not upset with him. I just want to understand. I just want to understand, you know, I put up on Facebook a couple months ago, it might have been last month, but I put up the video of Will Smith in the episode, the iconic episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Will's dad came and he left him and he asked Uncle Phil, he said, "Why don't he want me, man?" And that was the most iconic line in TV history. And so that particular dad was feeling away. And I was like, okay, well, why don't he want me? What I do? You know, but the truth is, you know, there are some things with my mother when she was younger. Um, I'm not really sure. I'm 49 years. I have no idea of what happened. I just know that this man is my father. This man has reached out to my ex-wife, was messaging her. I think he was trying to holler. I'm not really sure. I don't know. But he reached out to her, talked to her until he realized that she was attached to me. He cut her off or blocked her on Facebook, which is wild to me. Like you would talk to someone, a total stranger about me, but won't talk to me. You got my phone number, all that, and you won't talk to me. I said all that to say this is that has affected my mental health. That's before the diagnosis, right? Because of that, I raised my daughters a certain way. I was not in their life because of what he did to me because I did not know how to be a father. I didn't know. You hear a lot of men that are not in their children's lives and they give you all kinds of excuses. One thing I will never do on any episode of any podcast, anything that I ever do, will never give you an excuse. I was a piss poor father and I can't really blame people, but I do blame him to a degree because had he just been a part of my life, I would have known how to be a father. But that's besides the point. This is not a petty rant. I'm not going to do that. Right. But I will say this, it's hurtful. And the truth is I walked out a lot of hurt through my life because of that and not uttering the words and not saying what I felt and all of that. That thing was what made my mental health what it is. Now, is it up to me to fix it? Absolutely it is. I can't because I know he's not going to fix it. I know he's not going to, he's not going to step up. But I've had people in my life who came forward and said to me, well, this is what you should do. This is, you should reach out to this, give me all kinds of resources. I've done all those things. I made, those of you that follow me know that I just lost my grandmother who was that, outside of my mother, that was my heart. Right. And so my grandmother, rest in peace, grandma, grandma Maggie, when she passed away at the funeral, my cousin FaceTimed me at the burial site. And I found out later through my ex, nobody reached out to me, reached out to my and told her that he was actually at the funeral. He was at the funeral, was at the burial site, at the repast, the whole 9 yards. But he picked up the phone and called me one time. No, now that hurt. Now I've gone through a lot of things in my life. Lost my mom, grandma, things of that nature. Being married and divorced 3 times, all of that, and it just compounds the mental health. Now there are some days that people that know me for sure know that I walk in a deep state of depression 85% of the time. The other 15%, I'm chill, I'm laughing, I'm joking. I can crack jokes with the best of them sometimes, but deep down though, it's one of those. It's you have to laugh to keep from crying type situation. That's me. And some folks that really, really know me know that I walk in more hurt than I will ever speak. Right now, having those issues And then going through my third divorce last year, losing my family, losing all kinds of stuff, that just compounded. Everything's on top of each other. It just compounds, right? And it doesn't get any easier. And so then on Christmas Eve, I get the worst diagnosis I'll possibly ever get, even though pancreatic cancer is not a death sentence. By no means or stretch of the imagination, pancreatic cancer is not a death sentence. However, if you let certain things get to you, it will. And this is what I'm learning. Even though I'm going through I'm going through everything now, I absolutely understand that if I stop doing certain things, like if I stop doing this, if I stop interacting with people, if I stop, I, this eventually will kill me because I will lose I will lose my passion for doing anything else. But it's so hard though, dealing with mental health and dealing with different aspects. And, you feel like you're a burden on people because you're going through certain situations and you feel like with certain folk, you're walking on eggshells and everything they say to you is an attack. You know, when that's because it's a mental issue. It doesn't have anything to do with what the people that have said to you or what they have done to you. It's simply because there's some things that I personally have not dealt with. And that's the reason why I always feel like I'm always being attacked, from people. And a lot of times people are not attacking me. It's just, that's the way I assume or take things. Some people say shit. I'm sorry. People say stuff and yeah, it's an outright attack. It's a sneak diss. It's whatever. Or what's the word? Is it gaslighting? Is that the word they use? But sometimes some people genuinely don't mean you any wrong, but because of different situations, mental health, that affects people. My mental health affects me, and it affects me in a way where I'm a I function in depression, barely, but I function in depression, and I just being that's been 100% real. And I know that there are people that's going to watch these reels, going to watch this short, and it's going to watch this video, listen to this podcast, and going to send me comments and going to say, we wish you the best, and I appreciate all of those comments. I really do. And there are some days where I can read those comments, or I can, people will inbox me on Facebook, and I can, and they'll tell me, we wish you the best. We're praying for you, this and that. But what I realized through all of this is that I have to do the work, right? And sometimes, and I have to be honest with anyone who's watching this or listening to this, is that doing the work isn't a bowl of cherries. It isn't because, when you start to do the work, you have to start to look inward because you can't blame people. You can't blame other folk for your mess. Right. And that's one thing that us as humans try to do. We try to blame other folk for our mess. We can't do that. That's our mess. Those are our things that we have to deal with personally, but we won't. Why? Because we depend on everyone else to fix our stuff. There have been 49 years I've been on this planet, and I've been married 3 times, and I can tell you that I have gotten to the point where I have stood and waited, hoping that someone else would fix my mess. But now I'm in this process where I'm dealing with cancer. I'm on the verge of proverbial death here. I mean, if one thing goes left, I'm out of here, right? But at the same time, I want to fix my mess before I leave here because I don't want anyone else to feel the pain of what I've gone through and refuse to work on. If you are listening to this podcast right now, if you got stuff that you are dealing with, deal with it. Stop depending on other people. This is for me too. I want to be clear when I say this. This is for Terry too. This is not just for everybody else. This is for me. This is my healing journey. This is what I do to heal. And when I say stuff to you guys and I say, hey, you should do this, I'm saying I should do this too because it's totally on me, right? And I want to make sure that I'm giving story times. I'm giving you guys I'm giving you guys transparency and realness that will affect you to where you have no choice but to work on yourself. And this is for me too. Got to get back into therapy. I really do, because when I was working for the state, I had a therapist, but she was so far away. We were doing telehealth. I got lazy and stopped doing, and so I stopped doing therapy. But I have got to get back in therapy because I'm going to lose this battle if I don't. I'm just being 100% transparent. If I don't get back into therapy, I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose this battle, and I'm going to lose it hard. Right. So I'm telling you who are listening to this, who are watching this video, listen. If you do not do the work, I can promise you, whatever it is going to take you all the way out of here. And in your case, it might not be physically. It may be mentally take you out of here. It may be emotionally take you out of here. But if you don't do the work, if I don't do the work, it's going to take me all the way out of here. But at the same time, there are certain things that, I can't flow with, you know what I'm saying? And we're not, that's for another episode. We're not, but right now, men, if you are watching this podcast, if you are listening to this podcast, and if you have issues, trust issues, love issues, attachment issues, whatever the issue is, that is a mental health issue. And we have to work on that. Not you, we, W-E, we, like they say in French. We have to work on those issues, because what is not fair is for everyone else to deal with our mess, because we don't want to deal with it, because it's easier to let everyone else deal with our mess than us to deal with it. It's kind of crazy. So listen, mental health is real. Functional depression is real. Anxiety is real. The fear is real. Okay. But all that, and I think about, I've made mention of The Matrix, the movie, a few times in my history of this podcast. And one of the things that just came into my head was kind of like, remember when Neo first got freed and he went into the Matrix for the first time, and he came out, and he asked Morpheus, he said, "I thought you said it wasn't real." He said, "Your brain makes it real." Right? I can tell you that every emotion, everything that you're going through, your heart makes it real. And as long as your heart is beating, you're going to feel those things. So it is time. It is time for us to do our work. It is time for me to do my work. It's time for you to do your work. And let's get past this, because there's certain things in my life I know for sure right now, in the midst of all of this, that I'm probably not going to get through. Right? There's certain aspects of my depression that I probably won't get through, because there's so much scar tissue under the surface. It doesn't have anything to do with one person, but there's a lot of scar tissue under the surface, and it's not as easy. That's going to take years, and I don't think I have years, but it's just, there's certain things I'm just not going to get through. I already know it, but we got to try. We got to try, because there's other things in this life. There's certain aspects of this life that we have to make good on, and just making sure that everybody else in our life is not affected by our mental health and our mental issues. So this is episode 2 of the Knucklehead Chronicles Podcast, presents the Cancer Chronicles. Listen to me. If you have enjoyed this podcast, if you'd like to listen to my voice or what I'm saying, or you want to follow the story time, listen, join me on podbean.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please leave comments and interact with the podcast. Interact with me. If you have any questions, email me, knuckleheadchroniclespodcast@gmail.com. Interact with me, and I will see you in episode 3. Episode 3 is going to be on chemo day, which is Friday. That way you kind of can see what the inner workings is and what I go through on chemo days, which is fun. So looking forward to episode 3. You guys have a great rest of your evening or day, and I will see you next time.